Hi, I'm Guy Lawrence, and you are listening to the Guy Lawrence podcast. If you're enjoying this content and you want to find out more and join me and come further down the rabbit hole, make sure you head back to guylawrence.com.au. Awesome, guys. Enjoy the show. Bruce, welcome to the podcast.
Guy, I am so excited to be here with you because I know your audience is filled with all those wonderful cultural creatives, those people looking for new answers out of the old box that we're struggling in right now. So thank you for this opportunity to talk to these amazing people that are going to support the evolution we're experiencing.
Thank you, Bruce. It's greatly appreciated. You know, it's been a year since I started my new podcast, and it allowed me to just open up and go full rein on the conversations I want to talk about and bring people in. And I was very nervous, actually, because I didn't know what the response was going to be, because people were so used to me from my old podcast just talking about health and wellness. And the response has been absolutely amazing. And I know there's a lot of hungry people out there for this.
Let's feed them. Let's feed them some good stuff.
So just in case nobody knows your background, Bruce, if you were at an Australian barbecue and a stranger walked up to you and said, introduced themselves and asked you what you did for a living these days, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm a former research scientist, a pioneer in the field of epigenetics, the new science, the science of personal empowerment, versus the genetic programs that people have acquired over the years, where they say, oh, the genes are controlling your life, and that it's sort of like your life is pre-programmed at the moment of conception, depending on what genes you get, and that as far as we know, we didn't pick the genes, and we can't change the genes if we don't like the characters. And then we're programmed to believe that genes turn on and off by themselves. And then you realize, oh my God, I'm a victim of my heredity. If there's something running in my family, I'm gonna get that gene, and I'm gonna have that. Like cancer's running in the family, Alzheimer's, whatever. And that's a belief of genetic control by genes. And the relevance about this is the work that I started experiencing the new science actually 52 years ago.
Wow.
Now.
Wow.
I was working on stem cells, and at that time there was only a handful of us in the entire world that even knew what a stem cell was back in the 60s, okay? And so I was working with this novel material, and the cells in the culture and my experiments revealed that the genes did not control their biology, that the environment that they were in was adjusting their biology. And so when I started to see this, of course, at the time I'm teaching the curriculum, genes control life. And then I go in the laboratory and the cells are saying, nope, genes don't control life. The environment controls the genes. Well, today that is the foundation of a science called epigenetics. And you say, well, it sounds like genetics. I go, yeah, but the revolution is in the epi. Epi means above. So when I said the old belief that most people have, genetic control simply means control by genes. But if the new science is put in there and the new science supersedes genetic control, the new one is called epigenetic control. And you go, what's the difference? I go, epi meaning above, so it means control above the genes. I go, well, what's above the genes? I go, well, the environment. And then I go, yeah, but more importantly is this. The nervous system reads the environment and relays what's going on in the world to 50 trillion cells in our body. So the problem is, when you get to the level of humans, compared to very primitive organisms, we don't read the environment directly. We read the environment through a filter called the nervous system, which interprets that environment. So in most cases, we're not reading the real environment. We're reeling whatever program, belief, or interpretation we have of the environment. And this is why two people, could be standing in the exact same spot, look at the same world, and one of them goes, oh, how beautiful the world is and everything is great. And the one right next to him is going, this is a scary place. I'm so afraid and everything. I go, they're both in the same environment. Yeah, but each of them has a different filter of how they see that environment. And all of a sudden, why is this relevant? Because the filter is consciousness. And then I say, and why is that relevant? I say, well, if you change your consciousness, you change your genetics. And all of a sudden I said, well, wait, then I'm not a victim of the genes. I go, no, the only thing you might be a victim of is the consciousness that is selecting your genetics, because if it's misprogrammed, then by definition, your genes are misprogrammed.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's so many questions you've already triggered off in there, and it would be one hell of a barbecue, I could tell you. How, first of all, how would you define then consciousness?
Well, this is the issue, because I can show you consciousness definition that's a one-sentence definition, or I can show you a consciousness definition that's a couple of pages. And the idea is, oh, well, everybody starts to decorate consciousness with their own add-ons and then make it more and more complex. I say, no, don't do complex. Go to the simplest understanding, which is an awareness of the environment. I said, well, how do you know something's aware of the environment? Because it makes a response to the environment. So that means that some way recognized the environment and then was able to respond. So I say, okay, from that simple level of a definition of consciousness being awareness of the environment, this is why it's so important, because then we go down to the most primitive organisms on this planet. I say bacteria. I go, are they conscious? I go, they are absolutely conscious. They read their environment. They adjust their actions, their biology, their movement, and everything. So basically it says they're responding to this world. And I say, so consciousness begins at a very low level of awareness, bacteria, but as you go up the evolutionary tree, there's more and more consciousness with every organism as you go up. And so what's really interesting is then you can expand the definition the higher you want to talk. That's why I say, you want to talk about human consciousness? Well, it's about 2-page definition. You want to talk about bacteria consciousness? The one-sentence definition. And so basically it says this: consciousness is an expanding character or quality of living organisms that starts at a very primitive level and just gets more complex, not because it's different. It's just like numbers. Let's say if I assigned a number of bacteria has a 2 level of consciousness, and I say, what about humans? Oh, they have 200. I go, what's the difference? It's just more and more consciousness processing. So it's a scale. Presumably we're near the top, but we may not be here that long because we're not taking care of our consciousness or our world the way we're thinking these days.
Yeah, got it. So the way I interpret then if consciousness is awareness, and then where we put our awareness into the world, that information we then start to perceive it, and that perception is actually affecting our biology from moment to moment. Would that be
absolutely? In fact, but everybody's aware of it. If I say the word placebo, oh, what's placebo? Well, I've got an illness and I'm having trouble getting over it, but then the doctor says, well, here's this brand new pill, it's colored purple because that's a very special color and it costs a lot of money. And all of a sudden you say, wow, this is the thing that's going to heal me. You take the pill, you get better, and then you find out it was a sugar pill. And everyone's aware of it. I said, well, then what healed you? Well, it wasn't the pill. It was your belief in the pill with a positive spin that I'm going to get healed. You take a sugar pill, you get healed. You only did it with your consciousness. Now everyone's familiar with that, and it's like, yeah, good. Positive thinking helps create health. And what I really want to emphasize this moment, because this is left out of the conversation, and to me it's the most important part. What about negative thinking? I go, problem. Negative thinking is equally powerful to positive thinking, but it works in the opposite direction. So a placebo can heal you of any disease, and negative thinking called nocebo can cause you to die without any disease just because you believe you're going to die. So all of a sudden it says, oh my God, the power is in the consciousness. And what we don't recognize, and science unfortunately gave us some statistics, is that the vast majority of our thoughts are not positive thoughts. They're very negative, fear-based and all that kind of stuff. So I say, well, why is it relevant? Well, when you didn't think that negative thoughts had any problem, then you could think all the negative thoughts you want. But now that we talk about the fact that negative thoughts can cause every illness, and matter of fact, a fact of science, less than 1% of disease is even connected to genetics. Less than 1%. So I said, yeah, but where the heck is 99% of disease coming from? I say, environment, and more specifically, our perception of the environment, meaning our thoughts are not in harmony. But as we see the world, no matter how beautiful it is, when they go through that filter of not harmony, the cells don't see the world. They only see what your thoughts are. So that's why the nervous system is in between the actual environment and the cell, is this nervous system. And the problem about it is, I said, the cells don't see the real world. They only see what the nervous system tells them about the real world.
Yeah.
And that's all of a sudden it says, oh my God, then we have a heck of a responsibility, because if I'm sending signals to my cells which are adjusting their genetics, I sure as heck want to make sure I send them the right signals. Otherwise, my genetics are out of balance. And this is why we have health issues.
It blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind when I think about this. And what I found fascinating, and I can only speak from my own journey, Bruce, is that because I perceived the world a certain way my entire life, that's all I knew. So I didn't realize that if I did shift my awareness, it could shift my the way I was feeling and being at any one time, because I had only had the reference point of my past,
Yes,
reinforcing what I was already experiencing. If that makes sense.
And that's what you call truth to yourself. That's your truth, whatever that filter is. Whether it's true or not, that's just based on the filter. So, I mean, here's the one we just talked about. Almost everybody out there that hasn't at least read my book believes that genes are controlling their life. And then what we're talking about, well, that's a complete falsehood. Our consciousness controls our life. That's why I said, if you believe in the genes controlling themselves, then we're victims. We don't control it. But now we find out that belief was entirely wrong, because since our consciousness is controlling our genes, we're the ones that can change consciousness. So all of a sudden it says, oh my God, we can change our belief. And this is why, for example, something called spontaneous remission occurs where a person could be terminally ill with cancer and then go through a life change, belief change, like, I'm letting go of all my stress. If I only got a few months left, then the hell with everything. I'm going out to enjoy my life. And then a few months come and pass, and then there's a year, then there's a couple of years. And what happened was the moment they let go of the stress, which is the cause of the problem, and up to 90% of all illness is stress. If I let go of the stress, I let go of the problem. And then guess what? The biology will adjust itself to the new vision. So as you change from one belief to the next belief, your whole biology changes. And then you go, well, that's kind of weird. And then I go, there's something called dissociative identity disorder, which is also called multiple personality. I say, what's the relevance? I say, there are physical characteristics that are associated with different personalities in the same person. So, for example, they could be allergic to like strawberries and break out in hives in their normal personality. Then they switch to the other personality, which is psychological miswiring, but they have a different personality in about a minute and a half. And then guess what? They could eat all the strawberries they want because the other personality doesn't have a strawberry allergy. And this has been demonstrated. I'm going, changing the personality, change the entire function of that immune system in a minute and a half. It's like, okay, you know what, Guy, let me add this, because as we're talking, I realized, let me give a statement that's going to blow people's minds. They've heard it, but I have to emphasize why it should blow their minds. Quantum physics is the most valid science on planet Earth. There is no science that has been tested or verified more than quantum physics, most truthful of all sciences. I go, principle in quantum physics is consciousness is creating our life experience. Fact of physics, foundation. And I go, this is not like, hey, you want to believe that? I say, no, it's not your choice to want to believe it. This is the established science. And so while you're sitting there and you say, the established science says that as you change your consciousness, you're changing your life experiences. Well, this is absolutely true. And now we have a biological correlate to that, and that's the epigenetics, which is the one that connects consciousness to cell behavior and genes. So I'm talking fact. So we can turn off this interview and then walk away. And I go, you still have to know your thought when you walk away from here is what is controlling everything. And it's not a suggestion. It is fundamental fact of life. And it's hard for us because if you live 40, 30, 50 years with a belief system, and then some guy Lipton gets on and says, hey, well, don't believe that because there's a whole new belief system. And I go, well, it's actually not that new. It's since 1925, but it just hasn't percolated through our system. And I hate to say it, but I will. The idea that we can be program that consciousness, which then programs biology and behavior, is not a new idea. Hell, the Jesuits for 400 years have said, give me a child until it is 7 and I will give you the man. And what they were saying for 400 years, and nobody's really paid attention to it, but guess what? It's modern science. The first 7 years of our life is programming, and the rest of our life, 95%, comes from that program. So if you were programmed with a limitation in the first 7 years, if you don't change that program, you will express that limitation to 100 years of age. And so the idea is this. What's the point? It's not a new idea that consciousness controls what we are. It's been known for 400 years. I say, oh, well, just because the Jesuits said that, nobody paid attention. I go, are you kidding me? They're programming people better than they've ever programmed people. I mean, if you watch an infant walk around with an iPad in their hands, it's sort of like, whoa, the baby's got an iPad. That's a program. That's what it's all about.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And here's the thing, because I've done probably in the last 12 months, Bruce, maybe 25 workshops, and I go in and I'm helping people talk about meditation and have these conversations. And there's probably averaging 30 people per workshop coming in. So I'm seeing hundreds of people, and I ask everyone who's heard of quantum physics, and there's maybe 1 or 2 people just even tiptoeing their hand in. And to me, because of the shifts I've had and feeling my consciousness change, change actually the effects on my body by giving myself the time daily to meditate and look at these things over the years, is quite profound. Do you think this message is going to get out there fully in the future, or do you think
if it doesn't, the future is bleak, because we are all programmed with fear. We're programmed with not enough. We're programmed with a Darwinian belief that says, hey, life is a struggle for survival, and you have to go out there in a competition for fitness. Meaning what? Well, if you're not the fittest and you die out, that's the belief system. It's like, well, then everybody's out there in this rat race trying to stay alive, when the Darwinian theory about this competition is totally incorrect, because the new science reveals evolution is not based on competition, is primarily based on cooperation. I go, my God, that's 180 degrees different than the world we're living in, which is all competition based. I go, no, the world of success and health is cooperation. And this is the evolution that the planet has to face right now, because it really turns out the evolution is to recognize all humans are the equivalent of cells in a larger organism called humanity. And that we're replicating everything that 50 trillion cells are doing in our body. A little sidebar, okay? You look at the human body and all the magnificent things that we do, and I go, guess what? The body is made out of 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. The human is not a single entity. A human, by definition, is community. And the nervous system is government. And when the government is sending messages down, it coordinates the community. Messages not in harmony cause the community to break up, and that's where disease comes from. Okay? Yeah. So the fact is this, the functions that a human expresses, guess what? They're already there in a single cell. Most of the single cells in our body have every system we have: respiratory, digestive, excretory, musculoskeletal, nervous system, reproductive system, even an immune system in single cells. So what are we? Just a magnification of a cell in a sense of function, okay? And then I say, so what? And I say, in a new understanding of evolution, what's the point is you make the cell, and once the cell is completed to its fullest, you join them with other cells and make organisms out of it. And that's how an amoeba became a human community, and how humans as amoebas are coming together to create a superorganism called humanity. And we will survive if we understand that. And we're going extinct at this moment for not understanding that, killing ourselves, in fact, killing the world around us, because we have been so disconnected from the world, thinking, oh, we're just little blobs moving around. It's like, no, you're part of a matrix. And when you let your part of the matrix go to hell, the matrix is falling apart.
Yeah.
So we are in a crisis. And it's just beginning to being talked about in the news more. I've been talking about it for 12 years. We are going extinct. And now, I mean, for example, the numbers are like this: 2048, there will be no fish in the ocean. That's not a million years from now. 2048, you're going to be there, 2048, and then have to tell kids, they used to have these things called fish. Here's a movie of a fish. You can't see them anymore, but that's what we used to have. 2048, okay? That industrial civilization will not make it more than 2 decades from now. Industrial civilization from NASA research.
Unbelievable.
It's in a collapse, irreversible. It didn't say it can recover. It says as it's working, it's going to collapse because it's no longer sustainable. It's not, okay? So, if you were alive in 1970, they did a survey of how many animals were on the planet. They just did the survey again 2 years ago, and guess what they found out? 62% of the entire animal population has disappeared. We only have 1/3 the number of animals on this planet that were here in 1970. And all of a sudden you say, well, what is this? I'm saying, we have thrown nature out of balance, and that it's humans that are causing this extinction process. And so the only way out is humans have to change it. Otherwise, it's gone. So there's a simple reality. Humans may not make it through the end of the century as the collapse of the environment is occurring. And one of the big things facing us right now, which again, we've talked about over years, but nobody's paid attention to, is climate change. You go, what's climate change? Oh, it's going to get hotter, or it's going to get colder, or whatever the hell. I go, no, that's a side effect. The real effect is this: you cannot have agriculture if you don't know what the climate is going to be, because it's changing. And I say, why is that important? Agriculture is what sustains us. And if you can't plant and know you're going to harvest, because who knows if it's going to rain, or if it's going to be too hot, or it's going to be too cold, because it's changing. And all of a sudden that means you cannot count on food. So fortunately, the evolution is picking up, and they're beginning to recognize we're going to have to start growing food indoors, because the climate is not going to support it.
What do we do? Like if we look at that analogy of the cell and us as an individual cell in a larger complex community called humanity, what do we start to do then as an individual cell? Because quite often we can just be gripped by fear subconsciously, and we're not even making choices. And they always become, oh, one day I'm going to do this, one day, even with our own health, like we actually drive our own health into the ground before we make change as well.
Yeah.
You know,
the first thing is this. Let's just do a simple understanding. It says this: our lives have been programmed. It's not the movie The Matrix is not science fiction. The movie The Matrix is a documentary. We've all been programmed, and that most of these programs are negative and disempowering and limiting in scope. And the idea is this: you got programmed from the last trimester of pregnancy through age 7, and now science, and this is the part, it says that from the average person, 95% of our life is not coming from our wishes and our desires and what you want: health, happiness, relationships. That's a conscious mind, creative expression. But 95% of our life is coming from programs in the subconscious mind. And 95% of the time, the reason why we have so much subconscious, which defines as below conscious, so that 95% of our behavior is occurring without us noticing that it's occurring. You say, how can I not notice 95% of my life? And I go, here's the surprising part. When you're in your conscious mind, it's sort of like you have your hands on the wheel, you're driving the vehicle, and conscious mind is creative, wishes and desires, all the things you want. But the moment you're thinking, your attention is not looking outwards, your attention is going in, because the thought is on the inside. So I say, Guy, tell me what you're doing on Thursday. And if you look around, the answer's not written right here, but you got the answer where? It's in your head. I said, well, the moment you look inside your head for the answer is the moment you let go of the wheel, because if you're looking inside, you're not looking out. I said, well, then what happens? I go, subconscious is autopilot. The moment you let go of the wheel, subconscious sits in. But I go, yeah, but it drives according to the program, not to the wishes and desires. And I said, in the program, oh, it came in the first 7 years. And then here comes the hard part, because you say, okay, I'm operating from program. I can't see the program, and I also can't tell you what the program is. I tell you why, because you were being programmed in the last trimester of pregnancy. Before you were being born, you were programmed at 0. Okay, at 1. Guy, tell me the program you got when you were 1 year old. You know, it's like, I don't know. I go, most of the time we have no vision of what the hell the program is. So if you go in your mind, you say, what's my program? It's like, you can't see it because you weren't here when it went in. Your consciousness didn't kick in until around age 7. So I say, why is it relevant? Well, if the program is running your life and you can't see it, then how do you know what the program is? So I want to help a lot of people right now. Here it is, fast. 95% of your life is coming from the program. So there's a simple fact. Your life is a printout of your program. Point is simple. Look at your life. All the things that you like that come into your life that you really like, and it comes in because there's a program to acknowledge that. But then here's the one I want to emphasize. Anything you desire, but you have to work hard for it, and you have to struggle over it, and you have to put a lot of effort into it. You're sweating over it to make it. I'm going to make this happen. I'm working real hard. Why are you working so hard? Answer. Whatever you're trying to get to and you can't get to, it's not because the universe won't give it to you. It's because there's a program that is not supporting that in your subconscious. So I say, oh, well, how do I know my program? I say, look at your life. It's a printout of the program. Whatever you struggle with, you're struggling not because nature won't give it. You struggle because your program doesn't support it. And all of a sudden that helps us, because it says if we want to get freedom, then we have to find out where the negative programs are so we can rewrite the programs into a positive statement. So the first thing is, where are my programs? Look at your life. There's the answer.
Do we need to know exactly what the particulars of the program, or do we just need to know, look, there's something stopping me from moving on?
Yeah.
Let's just deal with that.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point to make, Guy, because of this reason is this. So there's an old phrase that some people may not have heard about nowadays. When I was young, we heard stuff. It was called, don't kill the messenger over the message. And the statement is this. I forgot how it was. Some king was going to, send an army to somebody, and he sent the messenger to tell the people that he's going to do it. And the people got so mad they killed the messenger. And it's like, well, the messenger isn't the one that's where the problem is. It's, what you learned here. And so the point is this: who did what to who, how it all happened, how the program unfolded, so how you created relationships that don't work and all that stuff. And my mother did this, and my friend did that, my dad did that. And you could go through a litany of all the people. I go, that's the messenger. The hell with the messenger. They've left. They're not even there. But you're dealing with the message. And so going back and, saying, yeah, my mom did that. It's like, who cares? If you didn't change the message, I don't care who gave you the message. That's not relevant. So, it's very important to recognize there's no blame, because nobody knew anything about this really. Well, the Jesuits, but no common average person had any idea as parents that what they were doing in their behavior and what they were saying was being recorded in a hypnotic trance by a kid until they're age 7. So the kid doesn't even know they have the program because it's downloaded without them paying any attention. And then it plays 95% of the time when consciousness is busy not paying attention. And so it's a whole invisible world that we're dealing with. And so the fact is, yeah, the matrix is right. We've all been programmed. And so I just want to add this part because this is so cool about the matrix as well. It offers, here's two pills, a blue pill and a red pill. Take the blue pill, you go back into the program, you wake up, and world is just the way it's always been. That's like most people just got up today, and the world's just the way it's always been. But if you take the red pill, you get out of the program, and they go, well, what's it like to take the red pill? And then I go, most of us, at least by the time we got to 20 plus, have fallen in love. Now, it may not have lasted. May have been a few days, a week, even, you know, a month, who knows? And I said, well, why am I bringing that up? And I said, because when we first fall in love, there's a period of life that I refer to as the honeymoon, where everything is beautiful. My God, you know, your life could suck every day, blah, 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 blah. Then you meet somebody, and 24 hours later, you're going, oh man, life's so beautiful. I'm in heaven. I love this person. The food's great. The music's great. Even the stupid job's not so bad. And I go, what the heck happened here? You got a whole life of miserable. And then 24 hours later, you have heaven on earth. And the answer is, we have now recognized that it's tantamount to the red pill. Falling in love keeps your conscious mind in control. You stop thinking so much. I mean, makes obvious sense. You look for this person your whole life. There they are in front of you. It's not the time to think. It's time to be. And that's what the honeymoon is. No thinking. It's just what's next. Let's do what's next. And visual, doing all that stuff. I go, well, what's the relevance? The moment you stop playing the program, your life went from blah, blah, blah to heaven on earth. That is the equivalent of a red pill. I say, well, do you have to fall in love to do that? I say, no, all you have to recognize is if you stop playing the damn program, you start creating with wishes and desires. And so it's available to all of us.
It's fascinating. That was the very question I was going to ask. Do we need to wait for an external circumstance to make that feeling of just being present and loving life? Because they say you can distill choices down to fear or love-based choices that we do moment to moment. But with that, even that knowledge armed in mind, how do we then start to let go of that fear? Because we can get gripped by it so much every time we come up against something we want to change in our life.
Well, you know, the biggest fear factor, and this is related to something else I had to learn myself because I didn't have this knowledge. The biggest fear factor is initiated when we're infants or just a little toddlers, a little higher maybe, when consciousness perceives of death. Until a child has a picture of death, there is no death. Life is just an ongoing thing. And then someday, all of a sudden, we learn things die. The canary died, the cat died, the dog. And then that's the first sign of death that we start to recognize. But the big one comes when you start to connect and say, wait, but my parents die. And that's the most important fear that a child has is, if my parents die, where the hell am I? And so fear of death. And then I go, yeah, but wait another couple of years, because by the time you're 7, that's when you become self-conscious. You start to recognize, but wait a minute, I die as well. And all of a sudden, the fear of death, which was building up, now is a predominant fear. And in fact, in biology, there's something called the biological imperative. And you go, what's that? And I go, built into every organism, from bacteria all the way up to humans, is the drive to survive. You try and kill a bacterium, it's not going to go, oh yeah, okay, kill me, man, I'm just hanging out, kill me. You try and kill a bacterium, it's going to try to maneuver in any way possible to stay alive. So this drive to stay alive is built into every organism. Then you put the threat that you're going to die in front of that, because organisms below us don't really know that. So they never worry about, I'm going to die. They never see that. But we do. And all of a sudden it says, oh, well, now our drive to survive has got a filter that's got fear in front of it. And it's primary. primary, the imperative is primary. And once you have the fear, and this is an important part because people don't realize this, your subconscious mind scans everything. It's like the supercomputer that humans haven't been able to create, the supercomputer called the subconscious mind. And it scans everything. I said, what's it doing when it's scanning everything? I said, the first thing it's doing is looking for a threat. Why? Because that's the first fear. You're going to die. So the emphasis is looking for a threat. And I said, was that conscious? I go, no, it has nothing to do with conscious. But if the subconscious sees something, it's sure as heck going to wake your conscious mind up and say, there's something to be afraid of over there. And all of a sudden we start responding like that. So what's the issue? The issue is the fear of death clouds our future and our progress because it's the thing that keeps us back. Because it says, if I do this, I'm going to lose my job, then I'm going to die. I won't be able to pay the rent, then I'm going to die. And all these fears, I go, my God, you're being driven by fear. And the idea is this. If you go back to the physics and I go, well, how do we create the world? Through consciousness. I said, well, then what's the consequence of having fear as consciousness? I go, well, about 99% of the illness on the planet is an example of that. And people can die just because they're scared to death. And all of a sudden I say, so what's the most important thing? I say, well, the surprise to me was to identify the fact that maybe I'm not dying. Maybe I'm immortal. You go, come on. I go, well, that's the problem is taking consciousness and connecting it to physicality. Because there's a consciousness beyond physicality. We're the consciousness, and we come into the body. And why would we come into a body? And I go, it's a virtual reality suit. I say, if you're just consciousness, if you had no physical connection, just consciousness, and I got this from my cells, so I have to tell you the lesson I'm going to tell you right now came from 50 trillion cells, because I asked the question when I understood the nature of the consciousness separate from the physical body. I asked, oh my God, then why have a spirit and a body? Why not just be the spirit? And that's when 50 trillion cells welled up and gave me this answer. So I know they're comedian cells, because I asked, this whole question, why have both? And the cells answered with a question. I asked them, why have both? And they said to me, Bruce, if you're just a spirit, what does chocolate taste like? And all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, sight, smell, sounds, taste, feelings such as love, all of these come from a mechanical device called the human body, which translates experiences into chemistry, which then is translated by the nervous system and sent back to source. So I said, oh my God, you can only taste chocolate if you have a physical body. You can't taste it as a spirit because there's no taste receptors. And all of a sudden then I started to go, and then backed up and I said, oh my God, we came into these bodies to have sensation. What does love feel like? What does a rainbow look like? All this. So we come into these bodies to have sensation. Okay, now this is going to, blow people's minds, I hope. I said, well, yeah, so we came in the body to pick up these fields of information, sight, smell, taste, sound, temperature, all these different things. I said, well, how does it work? I say, the brain translates these physical phenomena into vibration. The brain talks in vibration. There's no taste up there. There's no picture up there. It's all vibration. So I go, so what? And I go, now here's the part. This is cool. I put wires on your head, and it's called electroencephalograph. And I read brain function, right? Yep. And I go, guess what? There's a newer device called magnetoencephalograph, not electroencephalograph. I go, what does it do? MEG, magnetoencephalograph, does the same thing. It reads brain function. I goes, yeah, so what? The probe does not touch the head. The probe is out here. And you have to stop for a second. I said, well, what the hell does that mean? I go, your thoughts are not contained in your head. Your thoughts are broadcast back out in the field again. And I go, so why is that relevant? Because in quantum physics, the thoughts, which are energy, are part of something called the field. And then I say, so what does all that mean? That I'm broadcasting an energy field of thought? And then the answer, and here comes the really important part. This is a quote from Albert Einstein. Profoundly simple, and again, profoundly important. The quote is this: the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. You know, the hell does that mean? The field is the energy. The thought is the sole governing agency of particle is matter as we see it. And all of a sudden it says, your thought is governing your matter. It's like, well, that's what we've been talking about with epigenetics. Your thought is governing your matter. And all of a sudden I said, so going back to my story, then why have a body? Well, A, it takes our experiences and then sends them back to source, because the source isn't here, it's coming in, so it's going back. And then I say, and that's all it does. And I go, oh, no, because source sends information this way. Body sends information this way. So I say, why is it relevant? Well, the relevance is simply this. We came here to create. We're creating our lives. With what? Your consciousness. So we're creators. And I go, yes, we are. And I say, why is that relevant? And then I just have to laugh, because the whole belief that, oh, if you have a really good life and then you die, you can go to heaven where you can have whatever you can create. I go, this is where we came to create, because this is a mechanism of creation. It's a body. It moves, it does things, it makes things physical, it responds, it sends back information. So the analogy, very quick, we can't go to Mars. We send up a Mars rover, lands on Mars. Well, it's like a go-kart with a lot of cameras and gears, sensing devices and everything. I say, how does it work? There's a guy at NASA. He sends a signal to the rover. The rover moves around. And then what? The rover's sensory devices send a signal back to the guy at NASA. So, conclusion? We are Earth rovers. We're not even here. The driver is the field. We're the thought, the consciousness. And the body is sending back the signals to consciousness. So you don't die and go to heaven. We're born into heaven. This is where you came to create. This is where you take your imagination, and you can make anything out of your imagination. You want to go to the moon? First, you have to have imagination and all this stuff. I'm thinking, that's what human life is all about.
Totally.
That's it. So,
yeah, no, I love it, Bruce. I love it. Absolutely love it. It takes me back, because quite a few years ago, I went to a 5-day meditation retreat, and I experienced a connection to that very field that you speak of, and it was a life-changing moment, really, and it broke down all my belief systems about who I thought I was and what I do and what I'm doing with my life. And because of that experience and that relationship, you talk about the fear of our biology, the fear of death, and that protective mechanism that we do constantly, subconsciously, it really changed all that. It's like, it just, I can't even explain it. I don't think I have words still.
Been there, done that. That's exactly where I was when that information hit. I had to change my belief system, because I started, at first, well, is this real? I said, well, how do you know it's real? Very interesting fact. I had the science of this through the cellular research on cloning stem cells and following through on that. I had the science of this. And I saw, oh my God, we're creating our life. That's just the things I just said, okay? Mm-hmm. And then I thought, oh, I want to tell people. So I got a whole bunch of people gathered together, as many as I could. And I said, listen, I want to tell you about something. There's new science. If you understand this science, you can have the most fabulous life. And they looked at me and they go, you know, Lipton, for a guy who says you know this stuff, your life doesn't look that fabulous. And I realized I almost said it. Well, do as I say, not as I do. And then all of a sudden it's like, what the hell? How can you stand up here and tell people how to create a beautiful life when you yourself are not even following your own consciousness? Because that's when I didn't realize, when subconscious was the primary control. But that broke the spell. And once that was broken, I said, wait, I have to change my subconscious programming, because my programming is all 70% limitation and disempowerment. So, like yourself, there was a crash of, well, if this is the way it really is, then why am I doing this old one? Let's do the new one.
Yeah.
And it works. It works. It's fabulous. I mean, I have a completely different life than the one that was pre 40 something. You know, the last 30 plus years has been, oh my God, walking on this planet without being a victim. Walking on this planet that if I'm creating it, then damn it, I'm going to take responsibility, because if I don't like it, I'm going to stop creating it.
Yeah.
And like yourself, it was time to look around and go, what am I creating? It's not really helping. It's time to get rid of it. And then once you identify it, you can start to reprogram. And once you start to reprogram, it's gone. So the result of this is very simple for me to explain. I say I wrote a book called The Honeymoon Effect. And the honeymoon effect, as I mentioned, was how come it went from blah, blah, blah to heaven on earth? And the answer is because if you understand the science, you don't have to do it with a relationship. It was just that most people are familiar with it. That's why I emphasized it that way. You don't need a person to fall in love with, because the first thing you need to fall in love with is yourself. And this is the biggest problem. And I can tell you how I know it is because I got involved with belief change programs and seminars. And so we go to a program and we do muscle testing. And I say, let's test for this belief. I love myself. 80 to 90% of every audience will not test positive to I love myself. I go, well, if you don't love yourself, then here's the problem. How can anybody else love you? Because if someone says they love you and you look at yourself and you go, well, I'm not lovable. How the hell do you see I'm lovable? You got a problem, because you obviously don't have quality control, because if you knew me like I know me, you wouldn't love me. And then we push them away. And then at some point when they're gone, we look around and go, see, I told you I'm not lovable. They're not here anymore. We sent them away.
Incredible, isn't it? Incredible. Bruce, do you, just a question that I popped in there, like with your life, the way you live today, do you have any kind of set of habits or routines or anything that you kind of do daily to not fall back into the programs, or you kind of, life's just a joy now?
Just keep moving forward, hands on the wheel, driving forward, having made over time the corrections to those. You know, I said, I look at my life and where the struggle was. Look, I had no problem being a scientist. I was very successful at being a scientist. I really sucked at personal relationships. So that was really bad. And now I've been with my partner, Margaret, 22 years. And as the honeymoon book emphasizes, it's been a honeymoon for 22 years. Why? I celebrate life every day. I wake up and it's like, oh my God, another day. Do I know what's going to happen? Nope. Am I afraid? Not really anymore, because once the fear of death, and this was the real important part, I never followed back up on it when we talked about it. The fear of death is the primary directive, the fear affecting the biological imperative. When you own that you can't die, which is owning. It's not going to church on Sunday and reading in the book, oh yeah, look, I'm a spirit, or whatever the hell that is. That's not living it. If you live it and you recognize that I'm just the spirit in the machine, I'm not the machine, and that reincarnation exists, biology, belief stuff, then guess what? And it happened to me the first instant when I realized that consciousness of this moment of owning spirituality, not talking about spirituality, but saying, oh my God, I see how it works. There's a mechanism. Blah. 2 + 2 is 4. I am not in this body. The moment that hit me, my life was boom. You know what was interesting, Guy, was I didn't realize this until that moment that it happened. I got lighter. Life all of a sudden just got lighter. I go, what was it? And I realized, because I mentioned it earlier, do you know how much processing time it takes to watch everything in the field that could, scare you. Your brain is working all the time, not calling up and saying, Bruce, listen, I'm scanning for all the scary things. It doesn't say that. It just scans and works and pays attention to everything. I said, what happens if you let go of that? And all of a sudden I said, all that energy that was going on, I'm not going to do that. All of a sudden it's like, I just got boosted with energy. Why? The fear was ridiculous. All it did is it scared me. It's the nightmare stuff. And it's like, hey, if I die, I die, but I'm not that afraid of the death that my former life had, because if you think life is all you got is right at this moment, then the fear of death is, I understand it, I lived it. You mean it will end? And I'm going, now it won't end, and I'll be back. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, cool. And I think this is one of the important parts of the evolution that we have to face right now, because the primal fear is the fear of mortality. And if that primal fear disappears, then that all of a sudden frees up your life to start to enjoy something rather than to be looking for the thing that's going to hit you on the head.
Yeah. Love it, Bruce. Love it. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I ask everyone on the show. And whatever comes to mind, it can be long, short answers, doesn't matter. First one is, what's been a low point in your life you've had, but later in life turned out to be a blessing?
The low point in my life was when I was trying to control it using my mind. And the more effort I was putting in, like when I was a research scientist at Stanford, when I first started, because people anticipate, look, I got picked up on this wonderful grant to be a research scientist, and I go in there, and then, it's like, I've got to produce. And I was trying to make things. And at some point, I just got frustrated with it. I said, look, I can't do this. It's not working. It was almost suicidal, okay? Why? My whole career has ended. I can't do, the science was what I was doing. It's not working, and I'm trying harder and harder and harder, and it's working less and less and less. And it was like, and there was this point, okay, I've got some money left on the grant. I can be here, in California, which I liked, being an East Coaster. And I said, oh, okay, well, I let go. I said, well, I might as well enjoy this. I'll figure out my life after a couple of months, a few more months on the grant. And the part was, the moment I said, forget about it, was the moment that then things started working. And then, and so let me add this. Why would that happen? How come when I was working so hard, it wasn't working? Okay. And the answer is this: whether you're trying to lose weight, trying to find a relationship, doing a job, and you're working harder and it's not working, I realize this, you have to stop right at this moment. First question: why are you working so hard on this? And I go, first thought behind the working hard was, it's not going to happen, so I'm going to make it happen. So I say, so what's the first thought? Not the thought, I'm working on it. No, the first thought, it's not going to happen. That's why I'm working so hard. And it's like, oh my God, I'm starting with the premise it's not going to work. Where the hell is the direction? Where do you think it's going to go? If consciousness says it's not going to work, this is going to manifest. And I started to realize, oh my God, working harder just means you have less belief it's going to manifest. That's the reason why you work harder. I said, yeah, so what's going to succeed? The working harder part, or the belief behind it that it's not going to work? That's why I'm working hard. And the answer is the one behind, because that's the primary one. The working harder is a consequence of that belief. So, and I say, let me add this, guy, this is a great sentence, because it's only like a little sentence, but powerful. So then I'll explain it. The sentence is simply this: what is the function of the mind? To create coherence between our beliefs and our reality. So we have beliefs every day, and thank God, guess what? The world pretty much conforms to our beliefs. Because what if you woke up and every belief you had that day doesn't seem like, the sun came up on the other side and everything went upside down, and what the hell is this? I'd be crazy. But we're not crazy, because guess what? our beliefs manifest, and then we say, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It's like, okay, then that's no surprises here. And so the function of the mind is to take the belief and turn it into reality. Does it make a difference if it's a positive or negative belief? No, the function doesn't ask positive or negative, it just says whatever the hell the belief is. So if my belief is, I'm going to make this work, but for the reason is because I don't think it's going to work, then the answer is it's not going to work. Because the making it work is not the belief, it's the one that preceded that. And so people out there, when you're struggling on something, the reason you're struggling is you're trying to get to an end that your program doesn't support. And when you change the program, the end will manifest without any effort. That's the coolest part of all. Because when the belief is open to success, you don't even have to go out the door. You just open the door and everything will be at your front door. When you're programmed to fail, which most of us are, then you go through that life pushing and struggling, trying to find where you're going to succeed. And I go, you can't get there because the program already said you're not going to make it. And it's like, wow. And all of a sudden, then my life did change so profoundly that struggle, I don't know. It doesn't mean everything I want works. That's a very important point. But let me tell you why that's important. When it doesn't work, it doesn't mean I can't have something. It just means the way I'm going about it, I'm not likely to find it. So it's basically saying, don't do it this way. And yet, what do? When it doesn't work, we just put more effort into making it work. And it's like, no, you stop. It said it's not working. Stop. You got to go this way at this point. So I learned a lot, and and this was the reason, one of the primary reasons of writing the book, The Biology of Belief. One of the primary reasons at this point was it works. And I was the least believer of all this. I didn't believe in spirituality. I didn't believe in any of this stuff. But when the cells taught me, and I stopped long enough, as I said, to engage what they taught me, then the manifestation of life changed at that point. It's like, wow, completely different life.
Beautiful, Bruce. I reckon everyone that will listen to that then can so relate to that. If you could have dinner with anyone tonight from any time frame, anywhere in the world, who would it be, do you think, and why?
Albert Einstein.
Okay.
Albert Einstein, because not only was he so brilliant, but he was a human. He had human life and human feelings and human stuff like that, and he laughed, and he was a real person, but with a blow up mind like that. And just to be in the presence of that energy, I would feel just like, sunbathing in the tropics, sitting in front of Albert Einstein.
Amazing. And is there anything else you'd like to add to our listeners today of all the things we covered for?
Yes, I think the most important thing is this. We can change those beliefs. And I said, which beliefs? I said, well, look at your life and where you're struggling. That's a belief, because you already know what the destination you want. So here's the cool part. If you already know the destination, then you must know the belief that you want to have that destination. And it differs from the belief you've already been programmed with. So the point about it is this. Do I have to go to psychoanalysis to change my life? I go, no, all you have to do is just be observant of your life, and you know what you want to change. And then I say, well, how do you change it? And this very quickly, so it's just an intro. The mind is not the mind. The mind is two minds, conscious and subconscious. And the difference between them is this. The subconscious is the original brain that we got through all the lower organisms coming up. But when we got to human, we started to get a big brain part sticking out behind your forehead called the prefrontal cortex, the extension of the brain right behind the forehead. The center of consciousness. I say, okay, so wait, what's the difference? Conscious versus the previous subconscious. I go, subconscious is the habit mind. Animals have habits. People have habits. Habits are repetition of a program. Push the button, play the program. Habits are designed not to be changed easily, because if it wasn't a habit, I mean, if it changed fast, it wouldn't be a habit. You know, they go, oh, switching from day to day. No, no, habits stay the way they are. You put effort in to change a habit. Conscious mind is creative. That's the one that makes us different than lower organisms, because it has wishes and desires and everything you want. That if I say, guy, tell me what you want from your life, the answer is going to come from creative conscious mind, visualizing. So I say, yeah. And then I said earlier, I said, yeah, but subconscious mind is running 95% of the time, because conscious mind can think, and that's how much the time we spend thinking. So our life is coming from subconscious program. You want to change the program? I go, well, that was the difficult part, because while the conscious mind's creative, can learn just from listening to what we're talking about, reading a self-help book, going to lecture, workshop, any way you want. Subconscious mind does not learn in that fashion. And that's why the biggest problem we have is because we keep educating the conscious mind, new facts, new ideas, new awareness. Oh my God, I listen to all this stuff. I got it. I go, where do you got it? Conscious mind. I go, so what? I say, you're not operating from conscious mind. You're operating from subconscious mind. So if the damn thing didn't go into subconscious, it's a wasted opportunity at that moment, okay? So then I say, well, how do you put something into the subconscious mind? And I go, okay, this has been the problem. And first of all, let me just say, subconscious mind gets a bad rap because of all the psychoanalysis crap that says, oh, that's where all the evil comes from. And it's like, subconscious mind is a cold machine. It's a record playback device. Is your CD player evil? I don't know. It depends on the program you put inside. And I say, yeah, because the subconscious mind's got fabulous programs. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2? Did you ever have to relearn? No. Well, thank God you got a subconscious mind, because it's been holding that pattern of walking since you were 2, and you could be 100 and you still can walk. So I say, yeah, so if you put good programs in, it's great. You put bad programs in, that's not great. And I say, so now we're coming down, change program. I go, well, first of all, there's nobody in the subconscious mind. And you say, why am I saying that? And I laugh about it, because how many people, including myself, would talk to myself like, change this behavior, Bruce. Come on, change, keep talking to myself. Change this behavior, change this behavior. And nothing happens. It doesn't change. Then you get frustrated with yourself, like, oh, I'm so stupid. I keep doing the same thing over again. I go, who are you talking to when you want to change that? Oh, I'm talking to the subconscious. I go, there's nobody in there. So you could talk to your blue in the face. That's not how it learns. I said, so how does it learn? Now, it's 3 different ways. First 2 are natural. The first way it learned was hypnosis. A child's mind is in, subconscious is in a vibration called theta, wires on the head, EEG. Theta vibration is imagination. And that's how kids can mix real world and imaginary world. They have a tea party and they pour nothing into the cup and they drink the nothing. And then it was like, that's the best tea I ever had in my life. Or the horse is really a broom, but it's not a broom because now it's a horse. Imagination, but it's also theta's hypnosis. So the first 7 years, we got programs without even consciousness being involved, because whatever was coming in the first 7 years was going straight in subconscious programming. 7 years. That's what the Jesuits knew. Give me a child until it is 7. So I say, okay, so you want to do hypnosis. Do you have to do a hypnotherapist? No. You have to recognize this. At work, EEG wires on head, high vibration called beta. Come home, relax. Vibration goes slower. Now it's called alpha. That's calm consciousness. And just as you go to bed, calm consciousness, alpha, the vibration goes lower than alpha. That's called theta. So what does that mean? Well, alpha consciousness is disconnected. You just fell asleep. Yeah, but now the vibration is theta. What's that? Oh, that's hypnosis. Oh, so you put earphones on when you go to bed, and the moment conscious checks out into sleep zone, whatever's playing on that program is going straight into subconscious. So you can do self-hypnosis by putting programs of wishes and desires that you would like to manifest. They sell them for every wish and desire. And every night, you just put the earphones on as you go to bed. And after a number of nights, which is variable, guess what? The program went in when you were sleeping. You didn't even work on it. It went in by itself. But once it's in, 95% of your life will come from that program. So that's the value of it, okay? So I say, the first 7 years of hypnosis, and you could do self-hypnosis. And I said, then what happens after age 7? I go, oh, we learn programs then by repetition, practice. You want to play an instrument? It's a conscious idea. I want to play an instrument. Yeah, but not until the subconscious gets the programming of how to play the instrument, brass, piano, drums, whatever it is. You have to practice. You want to drive a car? Nice idea. I'm going to drive the car, but you better go in and practice how to drive a car. So the second way of learning is repetition, practice. There's a new age phrase, which I think is kind of interesting. It says, fake it till you make it. And basically it says, if you're not happy, I say, yeah, so what? So what if every day, every moment that I can remember, I say to myself, I am happy, I am happy, I am happy. I go, but apparently you're not happy. I say, doesn't make a difference. I am happy is being repeated, repetition. Many times a day as you can say it. And guess what? Habituation is repetition. So there's a point, guess what? You kept saying, I am happy. Then there's a day you wake up, you don't even have to say it. Why? You woke up happy. I said, how the heck did that happen? I go, once the program is in, the function of the mind is to manifest the program. So you work in the beginning to say, I am happy, that's my work. But once the program is in, beautiful part, never have to work on it again the rest of your life. Once the program is in there, it's going to stay in there. And if you didn't like the way you programmed it, guess what? Go back and reprogram it, because you can do it as many times as you want. Erase, new program. Erase, new program. So the two natural ways are hypnosis, repetition, and that's the natural way. Now there's a third way, and it's new, and I want people, if they're interested in it, to look on my website, which is simply brucelipton.com. Under resources, I have about 25 different what are called energy psychology modalities. A description of each, and you could identify one that appeals to you, and then there's a website, you go deep into it. But these new technologies are almost like a super learning process, and you go, super learning? I go, maybe seeing somebody in the bookstore read a book by moving their finger down the page. As fast as they just move, here's a whole page, move my finger, I just read the page. Ah, that's super learning. I said, yeah, but if you can engage super learning and use that for programming, once you have the belief you want to put in the system, it could happen in less than 15 minutes. You can rewrite a belief, but it involves a super learning. You have to be in that super learning mindset, which is each one has its own version. So there are 3 ways to change a program. First one is hypnosis. That's the way we got the programs in the first place. The second one is repetition, which happens any program after age 7. And the third one is the new version called energy psychology, which engages a super learning process where you can download new beliefs in a short period of time. And this is important. And the main reason why I'm saying this again is talking to ourselves is frustrating, because you can keep talking and nothing will ever change, and
Totally.
nobody's listening that way. And we want to change. So what have we done in the last bit of time here, guys? I said, what's your program? Look at your life. If you understand what you're missing, you already know what you want. So that becomes the program you're seeking. And that's the program that, using any of these 3 modalities, you can download. And once they're downloaded, and this is again the fun part, there's an effort to put it into the system, but once it's in the system, it's automatic, because it's been automatic for how many years for you now. It's going to be automatic then too. And that's the cool part. It says you put the effort in the front, and the rest of it unfolds for the rest of your life.
Yeah, love it. I'm so glad you clarified that at the end for us as well, Bruce. It makes total sense for everyone. That's beautiful, mate. So everyone listening to this, brucelipton.com, and there's /resources as well, right?
Yes, the resources.
Yeah, amazing. And of course, if anyone gets any questions, they can drop me an email and I'll help point them in the right direction anyway.
That's great.
Bruce, I love everything you do. Your work is amazing. I remember reading your book, Biology of Belief, back in 2008 and trying to get my head around it for the first time, thinking, what the hell is this guy on about? And then I've reread it, and it's really been a pivotal point in my life of opening me up to look at this work, which has changed my life over the years. So everything that you talk about and share is greatly appreciated. And thanks for coming on today, mate.
I want to thank you for getting there so you can take power over your own life. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to this community, because in this state of chaos that the world is in right now, the answer is, do I have to live in that? And the answer is no, because that's your programming to be part of it. What if you reprogram? You can have another world right in the middle of all of this chaos.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for.
It's like the biggest secret nobody knows about, and it's just got to get it out there.
Exactly.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Guy. So appreciate it.
Thank you.